Good evening, Khenchen. Good morning,
Yeah.
good evening, good afternoon.
Yes. So now we start.
Sanjay Chudan Soji Chonam Lai Chanchun Paldu Dane Jebsun Dagi Jinsu Jimbe Sunam Jin Dola Pinjir Sanjin Dumbar Shor.
Until awakening, I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Until awakening, I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings.
Nam Kada Nyampe Simje Tamje Deva Dan Devi Judan Dembra Jurje Dunga Dan Dunga Je Judan Devra Jurje Dunga Mebe Deva Dan Mendrva Jurje Niren Chada Nida Karve Dan Yumla Nebra Jurje.
May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness which is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness which is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion.
Chanse wadan jujin shamba dan jisu yiran kushin surwa yin gewa chungse dagi jisam tamche dagi chanchu chengu.
Whatever slight virtues I have accumulated through prostration, offering, confession, rejoicing, beseeching, and requesting, I dedicate it all for the sake of complete enlightenment.
Chennai Samsum Deshin Nijin Chu Dalu Longju Nangsi Yongxie La Lamin Choge Nguru Zaldu Su Umen Guru Devan Drake Rena Mendra La Bade Zaso.
The ground is sprinkled with scented water and strewn with flowers. It is adorned with Meru, the supreme mountain, the four continents, and the sun and the moon. As a Buddha field, I offer it. May all sentient beings attain the happiness of the Buddha field. To the lamas who possess the three kayas, I offer the outer, inner, and secret offerings. With my body, wealth, and all that is visible, please grant me the supreme realization, enlightenment.
Simjen Namji Samba Dan Loye Cheda Chedra Wa Chechon Temo Temba Ye Chejen Golo Gordu So.
Please turn the wheel of the Dharma of the greater and lesser vehicles and the teachings common to both, according to the dispositions and mental capacities of sentient beings.
Kanshi Kurve Jantun Jesu Rungshen Kara Gawale Drobran Zebe Kaju Rinpoche Jeba Nambra Tabe Jenjen Chenlab Je Shujun Jasu Shenbu Yingda Se Meshi Jen Malam Jashewa Yunrung Wa Kanche Drube Drubje Chema Mebe Lama Damba Namla Cha Zarshen Chudu Jebsun Chewa Shenje Labaran Zandu So Dojin Chema Delo Naro Ta Mamata Baba Rinje Tangwa Gajen Sumde Zawe Lamesh 在句拉玛耶达姆就送了，说完的说到句前节了，现在俺到等把做上节，看到蒙我把人拉玛去，突击上线他为拉姆的，用在新年能了个家，在好的他们忙节王伯堂，就听了说去节去了，叫我接班。三节送了，绕的时间得为就是话，太大节节他被去年不样的些。하려면 그냥 주로는 발라 삼제 쉬어던데 그냥 대행 저 가서 군신 리반점 봐 취재 잡에 그냥 송배다 인담 숨주 송아바데 마문투네 쉬어지 받아 되지인 대인도 전에 그냥 지다 취 쉬어 발라 그냥 근홍당 군주 선은 니 송용도 봐 그냥 대송도 전에 그 근홍대 samba chanchuge samla soba tendegi samba ja chewa chigi simgu yore tene kunchuge wanda cheyen du zane tene chi chula kuba dang oda tangwa o tendegi ge tone tene nyengu yorwa o tindu tendegi tene gunong dang kunchuge shimba tenzo tene sartabne da sembar nang shu.
So again, I greet you, my Dharma friends. And so we continued the teachings from yesterday, the 35 hard advices by the omniscient Vidyadhara Trikitapa. And so as before, so whenever we receive Dharma teaching, so we should receive it through the right motivation and also the right conduct. And so regarding the right motivation, we must cultivate motivation of bodhicitta, of love, a vast motivation. And then regarding the right conduct when we engage in receiving the Dharma, is that we do so with great respect and an inspired mind. So please again develop these two levels of conduct and motivation in your mind.
인도 가상 인담 다 숨주 송아 예배나네 드는 인담 교원도 체인도 전에 드는 20인 대 슈심버와다 드는 인담 당아바데 말에 다데 인도산에 가상한저 다질 된줄게 물려 토바데 근데 추주소 땅 물어와 근데 추주소 무동와라 가르치고 그래 서도산에 근데지 추게 토라 라왕 예배 감들라 배준치고야 근데 대양 땅아랑서 근데 지금 천이다 된베 라마 단지 대인도 텐데기 라마단 제와텔라 규바 친부군의 출신도 때네 대대 송백이 맹아 텐조고 토라 테네지 오늘 배자 친부친이 나보자야 테네 양지 넘버 300이 땡백이 골라 슈버 제발라 개치슌도 데카르스나다 잡선도와 세야테 임바로와 대인도 가산슈와 난신의 조반진의 숨경기 그 공직이 깔아양 지난 제발 점루긴 지게요 송절에 대난신도 드네 조지 반대 아티샤게 드네 점루기 평연 송도 자네 평연 제에나 직송요 대난의 직대 가르스나 다 당션도 가르스나 넘버 3제발 추바세야 지지 요래 된도 남베게 제가 추투레스 어떤데다 네 대인난신도 종공 파무주백이 넘버 3제버 추바서야 조직의 송 되게 된다데마 롱고 파준 대신나용도 전에 가르송 그랬으나 개시 저한테는 배 다 리백이 내 차상랑 개발 섬점에 제가 이나양 근데 산제당 최당 견든송의 접수 만족가 이나 저랑 배 개발 번지다지 이나양 넘버 3제버 차도 말레스 근데 배메 lumbo 지 이게 점이 로 메신킨 다지 파추 초 야 촌의 를 대장 메지나 양 섬게 나네들 산제를 잡순지 줄을 잡순지 견등을 잡순지 삼배 텐데기 잠루지 챙킨이나 다디 넘버 산제베텔 추인도그레 스나되는 건동을 파문트베 텐데드는 송용도와 대인들의 가상 군체는 진 추려 그냥 되는 거가 지 잡순로 고야당 잠루게 합자튼 솔라 소소그 소난신체는 되는 지다 자침보 개침보시는 전고야데 그는 행담들지 스나다 가상 행담 시인체의 쉬심바인 바로와
So yesterday we left off in the 35 heartfelt advices by completing verse number 4. So now today we continue with verse number 5. And so just to sum up, so we have said that now that we have found a precious human body with freedoms and advantages, we must not let it go to waste. So what should we do with this life? Now that we have encountered the Dharma and have the freedom to do so, we must make an effort in the Dharma practice. Also, we have encountered authentic Guru, and therefore we must regard that Guru's instructions, his teachings, with great respect, and must know how to put these instructions into practice. So we safeguard these instructions in our mind. And we mentioned also that the most important criteria that determines whether or not we enter the Buddha's teachings is the refuge. And we said yesterday also, Chikden Sumgen said in the Gongchik that the difference between outer and inner, or Buddhist and non-Buddhist, is the refuge. Then also Chowa Tisha, he taught on the benefits of taking refuge, and he said that there are 8 benefits. And the first, he said, is that taking refuge makes you be able to enter into the Buddhist path. And then Mahamudra, he gave an explanation on these benefits explained by Atisha. And so Mahamudra then said that even if you would be skilled in all the fields of learning, even if you would be a scholar, a Pandita, with incredible learning, if you do not take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, you still have not become a Buddhist. On the other hand, if you are totally unlearned, if you don't even know how to read and write, if you're totally illiterate, if you're just in the mountains and herding the yaks, but in your mind you think, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, then you have actually entered the Buddha Dharma. So this is a teaching by Mahamudra. And so also yesterday, we have said in one of the hard advices of the omniscient Vidyadhara Chökyampa that it is necessary. He spoke of the need of taking refuge. And then also we said that we should then guard the refuge precepts as dear as our own lives and consider them as very important. So this had completed yesterday, verse number 4.
Tati induzane ngaranzo tati pöju nangbege jinju changmate tangazo semna kare samgo yorosana ngaranzo samang tiba chimbo yin samgo yorwa tiba chimbo ri yonken tiba chimbo ge chu nyamne chingi sam tati de che yongbo yorwa tati che induzane tangone ge tiba chimbo chada ma cha saya de karsna 근데 장주고 쌤 줄에 여담에 세야텔라 라리요. 테마도지 가상 시원한 신데 먼저 티바 친구기 지소나나 대자와 지부게야 티바 친구 차이 말에 티바 친구기 추로와 지부게야 티바 친구 차도 말와 조금 알아서 섬기 주되 드네 티바 첨부 차고 요래 섬기 주되 티바 첨부 차야라 가르고 그래서 전에 장주심 세야테 줄 제고로 다 장주게 셈 손도 전에 제 라니 지부점 거르베 동해내야 타리아기 뇌바 마인발 너나 드네 남가르냐 메신저 탐제 남친 산재기 공방 지금 톱으로 쇼 삼바 텐더 토버지 지린이 삼바 다 텐데기 담자 유가 지라 티와 쳔부기 강사스는 송영 유로와 다 디인도 전에 텐데기 장주게 셈 대양 다아서 제투고 말와 대치도서는 단단 되네 근친기 다 장주게 셈 줄에 제वर 제발라 대긴 흔나 최 탐체기 자와 장바다 닝제 세야 되는 공고요레스 텐두 선전 탐제 대와 된도기 장바 드네 동해 찬도기 닝제 다 된도 장바다 닝제 대라 때네 드네 나랑레 옌자 체원 준비기 드네 만바심제다 주바심제기 오다 dom바트도 줄을 랭고레 송괴로와 대치도산에 제단한테네 오다 담부 대치 줄이잖아.
So then we come to verse number 5 today. It says, love and compassion, the vows of aspiration and application, which values others' lives, are the roots of all Dharma practices. Protect them firmly like one's own heart and eyes. This is my heartfelt advice. So as followers of the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, we all think I'm a Mahayana practitioner. So even though we think that we are practitioners of the Mahayana, what actually really makes one a Mahayana practitioner? That depends on whether or not one possesses bodhicitta. And as we mentioned yesterday, that simply living in a Mahayana community does not make one a Mahayana practitioner, or simply reading Mahayana texts does not make one necessarily a Mahayana practitioner. But for one to become a Mahayana follower, we must cultivate the Mahayana mind. And we cultivate the Mahayana mind by giving rise to bodhicitta in our mind stream. And that means that there is a wish to not only liberate ourselves from the suffering of samsara, but we want to liberate all sentient beings, limitless as space. We want to establish them all in the state of enlightenment, the state of all-knowingness. So if one takes on this commitment, thinking that I shall bring all beings to enlightenment, so then that mind is the Mahayana mind. And then, of course, bodhicitta does not just arise randomly in the mind, just like that. And so that's why Jigidharpa had said that preceding bodhicitta, first, the root of all dharma is love and compassion. Love and compassion has first to arise within one's mind. And love is the mind that wishes for the happiness of all sentient beings. And then compassion is the mind that wishes that all beings be separated from suffering. And so with love and compassion, then we consider others to be more important than ourselves. And so with that mind, then it is said that we should take the vows of the aspirational and the engaging bodhicitta.
하여튼데 인도산에 다른 건도 티바 쳔부기 다지 사당 람기 연대 컨텐츠 줄을 제고 유나양 대탐제기 자와데 가서나 되는 연 지버는 봐 대인바래 송래 연 진진지야 돼 점생 가서 단담 바르도 나랑 좀 고외나나다 동네 지 잡다 짐바 mambu 지 냥네 단다 보들 레버와 대인도 템제기 동해 녀야기 주조데 다 진진테래 대치도산에 라는 소되면나라 동해 말 다든 되래총 조게 산지 셴벤 섬는 총 대실 다디 신지 동해다 양다 제와 자살하는 송유와 대인도산에 tene da jibaran zimbate, da ji juyonge zaware, yen jibaran zimbate, yuntenge zaware, tende yindu zane, tene da le yen za chewa zine, tene mamba chanchun chondo semji, juba chanchu sem chondo semji, tende ge chanchu sembege domba te, shune, tene ji sosuge, mikde sosuge pe yabu dabu jiwa, dabu jawi yoba nangshin. 소속이 닝데 소속이 다보 야부 자기 요와 난신도 tene mamba chanchuge semdang, njuba chanchuge semnibote pe tsa chenpo chene, tenpo chene jule chik den tuya te, ta keche shure, te tola tene mbezo naro nang, stenge nyingdami sumbarda.
So, in order to cultivate all of the qualities of the Mahayana Bhumis and the paths, the root of all these qualities is a mind that cherishes others. And so right now, up until now, we have been wandering in samsara, experiencing all kinds of suffering, large and some small. The root of all this suffering up until now is the self-cherishing mind. In the 37 Bodhisattva practices, it says, all suffering without exception comes from wishing for one's own happiness. The perfect Buddhas arise from an altruistic mind. Therefore, completely exchanging oneself, one's own happiness for the suffering of others is the practice of the Bodhisattvas. So all faults arise from the wish for one's own happiness, the self-cherishing mind. And all good qualities, the root of all good qualities is to cherish others. And so that is why we must first consider others to be as more important than ourselves, and think that this is why I give rise to the aspirational bodhicitta and the engaging bodhicitta. Take the bodhisattva vow and guard this vow just like you would guard your own eyes, or how you would guard your own heart, considering the aspiration and the activity engaging bodhicitta as extremely precious. Hold them up, sustain them with stability. So Rinpoche Gedapa is saying that this is really my most important heart advice.
Tene hindam chubadela chanchu tolje dorji tikbelam mendo lamje nyingbo kangsongba tögun domsum nenjuru yardendo rabdum beba kugu hindam yin songdawa tan de songdo zane ngarang soda ji pyoge chujugi wangde cheyungdo zane tiba chechong ngade jeba yongsu zoba ji da pyo kanjengi jona daryongdu tene nyamlengi rinbegi nana yang tiba chechong ngade jebegi nyamlen chasangji changwa o tende ji yunggu yorwa de cheyungdo zane da karusonggu yorosana ngazong ngonege tene ji 남chen 산지기 공방 톱구구 여나 근데 람데 도당 하 니라 때네 산지 공방 조구구 요래 너가 손주고 나는 산지 공방 톱구구 요라 너 지불을 때네야 산지 공방 톱두고 말에 하 지불을 때네야 산지 공방 톱타비요 말에 텐두 너가 손주고 나는 때네 산지 공방 톱구구 요래 송거래 대제도 잔네 때네 문에게 chanchuk 톱을 제바데 단 타도 ngarang so ge pena ji sem ge nang la nyomomba rakwa dang chawas ta kha ni ngurwa tin du ndoi nyamne la tene pena so so tarbe ge nyamne chanchu sem ge nyamne tenso la tene nganchu julu yebe nyomong rakwa tenso pa pangu yore nyomong rakwa tenso pa selgu yore ta sangha ge lam la tene nyomong chawa tenso pa selo che gu yore o te indu zane tene domba sum seya de kardo yoresana je sodargi domba la tene chanchu sembe domba de jegure chanchu sembe dombegi mangji de sosdar domba re tena jindu tene sangha ge domba seya de sosotar be domba dang chanchu sembe mangji le tene tongu yore Tindu Sane, Dombasum say the Uncle Rimbanto, Koma Komegi, Mangshi de, Homa Himbare, Tan Tartu Maran to Julo, Domba Karajula Jegosna, Sanga Domba Jula Jego Yorova, Tichidu Zane, Sanjeg compound Tobra Cheveg, Lam Tartuwade, Sanga Dorjite Velam Res.
Then verse number 6 says, the Vajrayana path, which leads to enlightenment, is essentially the path of maturation and freedom, as it is taught. In this practice, the three vows are progressively transforming. To practice this diligently, this is my heartfelt advice. So now from the perspective of the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, the special distinguished vehicle that we practice of the Mahayana is the Vajrayana. So we practice the Tantras. And these teachings have spread widely in Tibet. The various, all the complete levels of tantric practice have spread in Tibet. So if we wish to attain the state of an omniscient Buddha, we must practice the unified path of the sutras and the tantras, meaning that only through the sutra path alone, we will not attain enlightenment. And likewise, only through the tantric path alone, we will not attain enlightenment. In order to attain enlightenment, we must practice the unified path of sutras and tantras. And then when we ultimately attain enlightenment, it is an attainment that it happens within the mind. It is when we have cleared all the afflictive emotions. And so we have basically two kinds of afflictions, the more coarse afflictions and the more subtle afflictions. So first, when depending on the sutra and path, where we mainly take the vows of the pratimoksha and the bodhisattvas, here we first must clear or abandon the coarse afflictive emotions. And then depending on the secret mantra Vajrayana path, we must dispel the subtle afflictive emotions. And so then how do these three levels of the vow build upon each other? So first, the vows of the pratimoksha must arise within one's mind stream. And on the basis of that, then the bodhisattva vows must arise. So meaning that the foundation of the bodhisattva vows are the pratimoksha vows. And then on the basis of the bodhisattva vows, then we must give rise to the secret mantra Vajrayana vows. So then the bodhisattva vow becomes the foundation of the, or the pratimoksha and bodhisattva vows become the foundation of the secret mantra Vajrayana vows. And so this is how, when we progress through the three levels of vows, the preceding lower level becomes the foundation of the next higher level of vow. So they are interconnected in this way, each being a kind of a foundation for the previous one. But then ultimately, the ultimate vow that has to arise within one's mind stream is the vows of the secret mantra Vajrayana. So in order to ultimately attain the state of enlightenment, one must rely on the secret mantra Vajrayana vows.
Ta tendegi sanga dorje timbegi lamla shu sendu zane shudan de kandachine shu go yore sendu ta sanga ge lamge tsawate wang sege yorwa pena khasan nangbegi lamge tsawate jamru chaswa teichengi lamge tsawate chanju ge sam chaswa denan shin ta sanga ge lamge tsawate wang seya tere de jidu zane tene wang deyang ta ji lamang changida nemen dene 왕 쇼고래 왕 쇼세인도 전에 지나 본방 거고 돌아셔와 대사 말에 축하는 로바 대사 말에 저거 가서나 왕게 가서 모두 난게 여러와 르 하라 모두 난게 여래 나서 모두 난게 여래 샘 찾아 정보로 모두 난게 여래天就다 Tenzo Montrevaji Guyurde. Techi Dutene Jovan Jidin Songung Gongjin and Karasumbarasana, Wang Dun Julet Jena Tobayin Sondova, Wangi Tunda de Susu Juletica, Yakshu Chona, Topa, De Majona Nyamyon, De Majona Kovachi Julejewa Zogures. Then Tenzo Kanya Samu Matang, Teneji Pumpa Gogana Rayaga Tapshidang, Duzijeg Togala Rayaga Tapshin de Jibugi, Taji Chilabzam Topsig Mato be Wang To Mares, Digital Zogo, Wang Tunda Montrevaji Gure, Sondova, what in the Induzane, then member Chepeg, Wang. That Wang Tedeji shoots a regular cargoes, not Wang de Nyamela Jargorde, Tendu, Trojig Lam Gomgo. Jerem Lion Angel Gomgo Yore, Tin Zorem Gomgo Yore, Tin Duzane, Tentegi, Taji, Sangage Lamgi, Nimbudote, Mimbe Lamdang, Torre Lam, said Tinire, Zo Wangdang, Nyamnenire, Tensu Teneji Yapo, Ji Yonyala, Nanzo Kargosna, Kadu Yanayang, Ji Tambu Kone, Nanzo Pe Sanghala Shuyat, this Kale Kabuyore, teaching the name Quinching Sondoa. Tukundu domsum nenjuri yarden to sondawa. Nenjuri yarden saying to Zane Nanzu Chidan Sanga say the Bechi Nyamne Tsen Tombo. Tenetema Zepe Tiba Chawapungji, Nimbo Top Chimbo Tenesi Rede Tambo Connecting on the Pechi to Mare. Tin do Tambo Cargos, Sosutar Dombala Ne. Tenet Tone Chanju Sembe Dombachi Shu and Duzane. Then Numa Soso Terbe Dombate, Chanjus and Bedombe Mola ya Nenjun Ruyure. Then it he tola, Sangha Dombaji Shu and Duzane, then it Chanjus and Bedombate, Sangha Dombala ya Nenjun Ruyure. Then Duzane, Anzo Sangha ge, Nyamne Chinkin Layang, Chanjus and Bedombayan Yogure, Soso Terbe Dombayan Yogure. Karasana, Koma de ya Nenjurati, Kuma Kumaterua. Tendo Kunsum Karamare, or Tentene, Teneji, when a domsum yarding tone, or Beton Chiate, meaning the means, Temado, Sosoter with Domba and Maju, Chanjus and Domba and Majune, Sanga Yamne Chigis or Tende into Sane, Domsum Rimbush into the Yamne Chiate, Tanget and Hindam Jeans and Desumbare.
And so then ultimately, how is it that we enter into this path of the secret mantra Vajrayana? So it is said that the root of the secret mantra path is the empowerment. And also we mentioned yesterday that the root of the Buddhist path in general is the refuge vow. And now we have said the root of the Mahayana path is bodhicitta, the bodhisattva vow. So then the root of the secret mantra Vajrayana is first to receive the empowerment. And we should then receive the empowerment from authentic, a qualified guru. And so from the guru, we must receive the empowerment, but receiving an empowerment does not only mean that one receives the empowerment vase on one's crown, or that one receives the nectar, the empowerment nectar to drink and to place into one's crown. This is not what is an empowerment, but the actual empowerment is an introduction. During the empowerment, you're introduced to your body having the nature of the deity, and your speech as the mantra, and your mind as Mahamudra. So this is what needs to be recognized during the empowerment. Therefore, Lord Jigten Sumgyen said in the Gongchik that only when the meaning of the empowerment has arisen in your mind stream, only then you have actually received the empowerment. So ideally, when the meaning of the empowerment arises in your mind stream, you gain realization. But even if not, you may gain an experience. But even if not that, you may gain an understand the meaning of the empowerment. And so that is the very least. If you can't think of, if you can't develop any of these kinds of understanding, and just try to get the vase on your crown and get the nectar, and that alone, sure, it's possible that there are some blessings in that too, but you have not received empowerment like that. In order to receive the empowerment, you have to understand the meaning of the empowerment. So the empowerment is therefore called the maturing or ripening empowerment. And so in order to engage now in the Vajrayana path, we must receive empowerment, and then after having received empowerment, we must practice the meaning of the empowerment. And so in this way, then after having received the ripening empowerment, we then engage in the liberating path of practice. Now, where we then practice the generation stage of the deity yoga, and then also the completion stage. That's the essence of the secret mantra Vajrayana path. So it's a path of maturation and liberation, or in other words, empowerment and actual practice. And so what do we need in order for this to become a proper practice? So we cannot just start out with the Vajrayana right away. It will be very difficult to really comprehend. And so that is why the omniscient Trigadagwa says here that in this practice, the three vows are progressively transforming. And so progressively transforming here means that, so generally speaking now, the secret mantra Vajrayana path is a very high level practice. And it is really the essence and most powerful of all the vehicles, the summit of all the vehicles. And in order to practice it properly, we cannot right in the beginning start with that and be able to do that. So what do we need to do then? We first need to possess the Pratimoksha vow. And then on top of that, on top of the Pratimoksha vow, we then receive the Bodhisattva vow. So what happens here is this progressive transformation is that when you receive the Bodhisattva vow on top of the Pratimoksha vow, the Pratimoksha vow transforms into the Bodhisattva vow. And so then you have the Bodhisattva vow. And then on top of that, you receive the Vajrayana vows. And then in this way, this Bodhisattva vow is transforming into the Vajrayana, the secret mantra vow. So that is to say that in order to actually practice the secret mantra Vajrayana, you must have the Bodhisattva vow. In order to have the Bodhisattva vow, you must have the Pratimoksha vow. So that is why you cannot start straight away with the Vajrayana without having Bodhisattva or Pratimoksha vows. It's because the way we receive the vow is through transformation, not just the receiving of the vow, but by transforming the prior lower vow to the next vow. So the next higher vow is received through transforming the lower one into the next higher one. And that is also to say that these different levels of vows are interconnected and not separate. So it is therefore his hard advice to practice the vows in such a progressive order. Otherwise, if you don't receive the Pratimoksha vow, and then you don't receive the Bodhisattva vow, then actually you also cannot really practice the Vajrayana. So to practice the Vajrayana, this kind of progressive transformation from vow to vow, the three levels of the vows are essential. And so this is his hard advice.
Jidangi Sotar Chansem Sangha Kandiji Nyamne Cheba Yinayang, then Lama Sayade Khenchen Yimbate, Domasunga Kala, Jinsong Jingre. In Nanayang, Flower to the Sangha Dorji Tibeki Nyamne Chingen Jigum Sanotawa Yina. Then it's in Yamne Chingen, Tangarang Sola, Chog Nudu, Tatu Sanjigi compound Toya Tang, Tumung Nudu. Nekap teneji tserenwa nemewa lasoba tendegi ji nekap dan tartugi lekso kandeji togo yonaya tendegi chodan tumongu ngudumnigi tsawade tene dorji lobonde imbarwa dorji lobonde tende tendegi dorji loben tela 당도 탐색대 배 개체슈지 저송 제고래 제나 당보공네 제 상하게 왕슈 상하게 티슈 상하게 맹아 마주문에 라마라 딱제체 그래지 딱제체네다 소송문에지디 라마라 땡 회바지겐도 삼바충아이나 되네 딘되네 왕롱 맹아슈나 딱가진 숨댕게 라마세 차용으로와 왕그룹의 가딘 맹아 침베 가딘 주 시베 가딘 숨댕 송으로와 다 텐데게 가딘 숨댕게 dorjilloban tela ngazo daji 소소게 소레 자체와 전에 담식도 송고 요래 강에서나 담식 송와이나 초단 투mon군 그룹도 요래 담식 마소나 녀와 마동 로사 매용 요래 딘도 상하사야데 남주 캡상야 첨보리라 년카야 첨보리 송은도와 줄베나 뉴메나 주바나 신레 송은도와 줄진 뉴메나 추송와이나 야나 땡네 야 통고래 야나 원에 마 통고르마도 그 지만에 파서 된사라고 말와 디난신레 송게 디인도 전에 데 텐데기 dorjilloban tela kundudan dembe tone tene tsawadan yanlaga tongwada sangaka mangbo yorowa tenso yabu nyamne cheyade ta ngenyingda means temado sangage wang mangbo shu sangage ti mangbo shu tene tamse tongso masongwa ina sosolayang kanya pengi mare lamada lomaniga tamse nyamne tene je nyarwalan roya jochen roya tende nyinga yores tindu zane 다부른 부지가 송제는 데 송도와 추 난신치는 냠수 말레와이나 추경년 송을 틴로에 닌카요르다스 오송마 난신레 텐드 상하 난신 냠네 마제바이나 드니야 상하기 냐와랑도 덴데션로에 닌카드네 용거요레 텐드 자네 다 텐수 돌아드네 삽섭치야데 군체는 젠타고 공개되는 행담이 송바레
So then we move on to verse number 7. It says, the root of achievements is the Vajramaster. Observe the commitments dearly with great devotion. Not doing so is the root of downfalls and its branches. This is the root of practice, as it is taught. This is my heartfelt advice. So as we said, in general, whatever kind of practice we engage in, whether it is the Pratimoksha, the Bodhisattva, or the secret mantra Vajrayana, the guru is always essential, regardless of which of the three kinds of vows we are observing. And so in particular, within these different levels, when we, from the perspective now of the secret mantra Vajrayana, since we are practitioners of the Vajrayana, the guru, the Vajramaster, is extremely important because so it is through the observing of the Samaya with the Vajramaster that we attain the two siddhis. So these the root of achievements. Here, the achievements refers to the two siddhis. So there is the ultimate siddhi of enlightenment, and then there is the common siddhis, the temporary siddhis such as long life or freedom from illness. So the root of all temporary and ultimate goodness, those two siddhis, arise from the Vajramaster. And that is why it is most essential to safeguard our Samaya with the Vajramaster. And that also involves a thorough investigation of the guru before you receive an empowerment of the secret mantra and instructions and pith instructions from that guru. And then after thorough investigation, when you find that this is a qualified, a true guru, then you receive empowerment, teachings, and pith instructions. And having received them, then this guru becomes your guru of threefold kindness. That is the kindness of having given empowerment, the kindness of having given pith instructions, and the kindness of teaching the tantras. So it is said that one should regard this Vajra master endowed with threefold kindness as even more precious than one's own life, or regard the samaya one shares with him as even more precious than one's own life. Because if you keep the samaya, then the two kinds of siddhis will arise. On the other hand, if one does not keep one's samaya, then there is no other place to go than hell. So it is said that actually the path of the secret mantra Vajrayana is a very critical path, a very dangerous path. It is just like a snake being stuck in a bamboo reed. So for the snake to get out of that bamboo reed, it can either go out on top or on the bottom, but it cannot exit the bamboo reed somewhere in the middle. There's only two ways to go. And so this is also how it is with the Vajrayana practice and the keeping of the samaya. So if you follow the Vajra master with great respect, and you do your best to keep the various Vajrayana samayas of the root and the branch samayas, then that leads to the upward direction. And so practice it as well as you can is Trikitapa's hard advice. Otherwise, if you receive many secret mantra empowerments and teachings, but fail to observe the Vajrayana Samaya, then all of these teachings and empowerments really are of no benefit, and there is a danger to actually fall into hell realm. Actually, Gampopa had said that if you do not practice the Dharma in accordance with the Dharma, then that Dharma itself may become a cause for leading you into the three lower realms. And so similarly, if one does not practice the Vajrayana in accordance with the Vajrayana, then there is a danger that the Vajrayana practice itself may plunge one into the hell realms. Therefore, it is the omniscient Trikitapa's hard advice to be very careful on this path.
Rida mema jejin bebe tsul jibur neba ku hindam yin songdawa. Are ngarang so penachi jida chu nyamne chingen jigi ngone daji tangbo le tangbo ba jigi ngone be ne tane ji karsoda namyen mangbo chesa me mangbo da nyamdo jig chiyanro chu ngone ji yabu ji chatuya dis kale kabo yumruwa tende indusane this 줄 왼바지 때한테 개체슈는 로지 차용비로와 네 왼발라대야 대 가르치는 데서는 네 왼발라 대바이나 ten시 바유 제야래 하용고요래 템바의 시신대 제야래 하용고요래 대 인도산에 템바의 시신 야나 바유서야 돼 가르치는 제고로서는 바유서야 돼 연대 탐색인 중세계 자원으로 차용고요래 배는 가서 데다와 가세 추지기 나라 네베 남칼의 예배 다와당 까마다 니마탄도 좀년지 좀 통구요나 근데 추대 당보 요함에 가지 거야 개침으로와 추대베 연굴 침부 연경이 추지이나 나도 니마도 다베 좀니 세고 통투 말에 대나진도 샘드네 전시 바유 연경이 차와이나 근데 연대 탐지랑신 기준을 제용을 해 송게 나 된대게 텐시 바요 영향을 가르고서는 당부 내왼백에 살 때고 소수지부 전에 르다 매만한 신전에 대양지 미신다긴 되는 가 취치 연도도 많이 베베토네 기분내 고레스 대신 내봐이나 능문에게 따지 바유 줄을 제용을 대라더네 내 섬주면 제가 줄을 제용을 근데 인도 내 왼바땡야다 개침문이 땡행 행담이서야 대송발에.
So then verse number 8 says, mindfulness is the foundation of all the good qualities, abandoning distractions, live alone in a hidden cave like a wounded animal. This is my heartfelt advice. And so now, from the perspective now of a more beginning practitioner of the Dharma, generally when we start out with practice, then and we try to practice in the midst of a lot of different distractions together with many different people. At first, it will be a little bit difficult for one's Dharma practice to become really stable like that in the midst of all these distractions. So at first, it is better to seclude oneself to a more isolated place in order to practice, because then it is easier for one to cultivate mindfulness and conscientiousness of heedfulness. It's easier for one to develop introspection. So we need to develop mindfulness, introspection, heedfulness. And that is because it is said that the source of all good qualities is heedfulness or mindfulness. It is said in one teaching that so if you want to see the reflection of the moon, the stars, or the sun clearly in a body of water, it's important that the water is completely still and unmoving. If the water is moving a lot, you will not be able to clearly see the sun, the moon, and the stars. And so similarly, if mindfulness and heedfulness are present, it is that all qualities will naturally arise. And so how do we develop mindfulness, heedfulness? In the beginning, we should isolate ourselves to a more secluded place. It is said here, just like a wounded animal, all by yourself in a place of seclusion. And that also means not to make like a big show of it, telling everybody that that's what you're doing, but to stay there in a hidden way. So you're hiding away without speaking of it. You're in a hidden cave like a wounded animal. And then this is how mindfulness, heedfulness arises. And from this then, many inconceivable qualities will arise. So for these qualities to arise in the mind, it's important to isolate oneself to a more secluded, undistracted place. So this is his next hard advice.
Tene 단단데 단단에 내외바 땡구를 손도자네 알아서 추칭게 참아데 tene lap치 난싱이 내외바 지런 로투 말와 간스나 소소소소 소와 제구레 안다르지 텐데게 달래가 만부지 유도자네 베 내르트 가주 고마탄도 배와 난신신은 어떤 로투 말와 이내양 땅가랑 소양 가랑 소던 tumbe기 내외바 땡야 용그레 베나 니레니레긴 소외나라 소소베다 지 칸던로 데스지야유나 gomro jamkenro tendeyina ta sosogi chimge nane yanji kangba wenba zhou ji la soso jibu chen de ya des ji nyamne che ya dan tenso to la sano dan ya che wa ina ya degi pa yu ju le ya le la yung yu re ro tin de tende che cho yu re de ji de zane tene dandan de la len so de mena sung yu wa yunge pangbe nyamon remjin dip naming mebe gibjurung nangim per ribatangbe chule ngeshi je wenba temba jerselan yin sumorwa tindu newembeki ta chechu zogu sumsongdo wa deshidu newemba lapchila sobata wina re yana newemba sosuge chimge nane kangba wenba tende na dene nyamne cheba ina kurang shingi yantende top yungu yorwa tende indu zane tene ta tenso sumbare
And so we, as practitioners, should isolate ourselves to a place of isolation. But of course, now from our perspective, we can't just go to Lapchi and just isolate ourselves there, because we also have to make a living, live our life, and we have much work to do. So we can't really go into the mountains like the past Kagyu masters have done. But we can, in fact, isolate ourselves from our own perspective, from where we are at, from our life, the perspective of our own way of living day by day. There's a way for us to practice also as a householder in our homes. For example, in your home, you can isolate yourself, make that your place of isolation. You just spend time all by yourself and do some practice and reflect upon all these things. And so in this way, then mindfulness, heedfulness will gradually arise in the mind. Also in the 37 Bodhisattva practices, it says, when afflictive emotions arise, they grow and are not defeated by antidotes, they will grow stronger. And so therefore, it is a practice of the Bodhisattvas to eliminate them the very moment that they first arise. So through that, in order to eliminate them when they arise, we must seclude ourselves to places of isolation. And there are different levels to that. So like, for example, going to a mountain hermitage, seclusion like Lapchi, or if not, to be in your own home as a householder and make that your place of isolation and practice. And in such places of isolation, it is said the qualities of mindfulness, of heedfulness will arise naturally.
Nevembala dea techidanganzo tachi namjungi chuguto kecha mayimba sovetone kecha sheyundu tsanaya Nevemba sayadala ko chechu pedawa penna mechi ta chongchen nana pero lo mambu dene tendregi de dengi mechi ina tenne ya wemba rigi ngoda shingnaage sing tende jile ya leondu tsanaya kochi lulu ndo chayungdowa ngarang su namjun sovenala taku chongchen nana deya mang chayungdu tsanaya ye Nevemba la leondu jibu tsukdowa yinaya Nevemba la lope mambu de dengi chik chongchen nana ma leonwa yin ko jibu tsukdowa 그 탕치기도 하다 총체는 게 빼게 망보요래 와야다 지금 잠문다 망보기도 전에 탕체용도 같아 근데 뒤좀 생각하잖아 눈제 유세기 내당 내변반이보대 난주 르나 샘라드네지 시와때 토마토에 집어던지지 용도 대체용도 전에 근데지 추년에 진행지나 대지 왼바된 도야데 개침벌에서는 대송용고요래 대대나진도 산재기 한다 너 띵인생이 절부분 도세야지다와 띵인생 절부분 도세야 띵나라더니 내왼배 연대 주선요 소용도와 남도 왼바체 도바이나 근데 소소로 캡산 주토 그래스 변한지 된게 차와대서 반용을도 그래스 드네티나 안신도 남동 담아다 제야 다른 차도 그래스 드네티나 안신도 현달라 투바쇼야 용스 차그레스 네벤바 친도 수정 투바자사라고 말와 데네테나 안신도 제 수직이 네바메바 돈에 네투그레스 데나 안신도 데네 녀모바탄조 공네 공도야 필리 말레스 데나 안신도 데네 미신달라양 미신달게 추량最바자세기 시차투 말레스 미신달라 녀몽은조 제주 말레스 Tena Anshindu tene Luda Semdepe Shiva Chatu Gres. Tene Julam Tenzola Megewa de Rangshin Gemewa Chatu Gres, Damlores Megewa. Tene Kale Kale Kowanea Tareage Tarbatan Tumbeki Semjetu Gres. Tene Tena Anshindu Nyurdoda Sanjiki Kombangun Chetu Gres, Techidusane, Tatendechene, neven big and then just something they saw young doa or tea in the sane, then the nequin can thou giburchin and neven but a nea the big catching what it is, and that is what on a sona and we are it.
So when we normally we live in normal society, not in an isolated place, and so then if we're staying in for many, if somebody stays in a city, a very busy place where there are many people for many years, and so then one day they arrive in an isolated place somewhere in the mountains, in the forest, and then their minds become very relaxed. And even so, it still seems to them that it's almost a bit much of that, and then it seems that the city and something a lot going on, and seems to be like a happy thing. But then from the perspective of someone who's actually spent many years in isolation, when they come to that city, they don't actually feel they don't have this like pleasant feeling. It actually makes them feel exhausted or tired. There's so much going on, so much hustle and bustle going on in the city. And whereas when they're in an isolated mountain retreat, their body and mind are so much at ease. So this is what happens when one spends a long time in an isolated place, which is why for Dharma practice, it's very important to seclude oneself to a place of solitude. Then the Buddha also said in the Samadhi Raja Sutra that he spoke about the qualities. There are 10 qualities of isolated place of seclusion. So he said that in such a place of seclusion, one will be able to practice the Dharma at ease. One's worldly mundane activities will get lesser, and various thoughts will disappear. One will distance oneself more and more from this ordinary thinking. Also, there is a less of a chance of fighting with anybody, because you won't find anybody to fight with there. And then also, when you are by yourself in hermitage, then there is no one there to harm you, to affect you in any way. So therefore, there's no one who triggers your afflictive emotion, so they will not increase. There is no one who will, no other person or thing that will cause your afflictive emotions to arise. There's no one there. And so for this reason, your body and your mind will just naturally come to a state of peacefulness. And then in such a state, all your activities will naturally be virtuous. Naturally, you will not engage in negative actions. And in this way, slowly, you become liberated from samsara, or you develop this mind that is in accordance with liberation. And as a result of that, you may quickly actualize enlightenment. So these are those 10 qualities of a place of isolation. And so therefore here it is said by the omniscient Chukitagpa, therefore it is my hard advice, it is important to isolate yourself to a place of seclusion.
Zundu Lumi Tabu Tenguruchi Namia Poma, Kuin the means. Tayan Nevembala Leva Samjin Mare Sumberta, Nevembala Yandro, Penalapchindo Chilayandro, Tenianchi, Pandra, Chamchamda, and Rotendes, and Rodevain to Suscolares. Tenajin Bena Sosachibu, Kambachina Panzu, Tenijendo, Yana Nindo, Kudevaina, Teniko, Wemba Tembe, Pen Matobarwa. Techidu Wemba Temba Chibugin Diguna. Then really you were that and some Sanjiko top side Jirovas from the Nevemba Eurovas, Tindu, Tindring Mares. I Wemba left Saduzane, Caragorus enough. Should have Zunduchi Goris, somebody. Then two tado similar Karisam Gurusana. To Sushida Yomari, Ting to San Moneji, Metin Jopo John Yore, Teach to Sanata, Chuji Chego to Sambegone, Kaduina, Simgi, Jig Samtati, Tonton Jizogures. All that telling Rimas on Sani Chichore, Lojuma Chichore, Mahombala Chichore, Samne, Samlo Jambutaya Yomares, Sim this Ta Tontonji. What Tenrechene, Teni, Beji, Madabe Tone, Tengorchene, Teni Chuga Torata, Jim Beton Yang Tabachi. Naming Pame Tonatini, Gajur Yang Tabach Zoyadi, Ning means the Modoyan, Neven Balaya, Lemne, Dixons and Deja Wine and Dimadas, and left Sane, the Tadon Cargos, but Jundugi. Shoot Chabuchi Chimure, Sayata, thinking the means somebody.
So then number 9 says, but if one lives without mindfulness like the animals, it is pointless abiding in seclusion. By encouraging strong, continuous effort, one prevents distractions. This is my heartfelt advice. So then if one then has arrived in such a place of isolation, so that alone is also not enough. So for example, if you go to Lapchi, that alone will not do. If you just go to Lapchi and you camp out in the meadows and you go around having a tour, it's basically a waste of time. Or if you're all by yourself at home and you isolate yourself and then you turn on some music and then you go to sleep, then that's obviously also not what is meant with isolation, what you should do in isolation. Then the isolation is of no use. So if that would be enough, if isolation in itself would be enough, then all the mountain, the wild animals would already be enlightened because they spend their whole life in isolation, don't they? But that's not sufficient. So once you have arrived in a place of isolation, then you must also practice the Dharma diligently, meaning you always have in mind a sense of urgency. I have no time. My life is coming to an end quickly. I must practice the Dharma quickly. So there is this sense of urgency that arises. And urgency means that you don't procrastinate. You don't think that maybe not today, but tomorrow or next month, next year, and so on. So instead of putting things off, you bring them close to you, remembering impermanence and making an effort in Dharma practice. So it is the hard advice to abandon all distractions and practice with great effort and diligence. So the hard advice is where Rinpoche is saying that once you have arrived in a place of isolation, that alone is not enough. Once you are there, you have to make a strong and continuous effort in the practice.
Jansem Nati Chechang Gubame, Tambur Neba Kuing the means, that is on the Sane, Anganzo Kadu Yinaya, Sacha Kawala Deva Yinaya. Messundraji than Yamdutani Shiba Yinaya, Roa, Sudanyam Roa Yinaya, Deva Yinaya, Sawa Yinaya. Kandar Mijendala, Kujaviavachi Segure, Sumarta, Tamchela Kujaviavachi. Sujila Chesu Meba, Chet the Suba Send Order. Nabe Hansayagi, Chimbo, Yapo, Zambo ins. Kunzo Shidata, Membare Sambatendegi, Duhizawa in the Chiju Mare, Tamchela, that in Zambana, Zambulengi, Totan Danyam, Sayakija Shayangura, or Dereta, Munegichi, Tamche de, Shugutona Shenayam, Totan Danyamimba. Samche Tamche de Deshinimba, Jingsonimba. Or Tena Shindu, Samche Tamche Yang, Dewan Deba Jingsonimba. 동해 면도바 정송인바 오다 텐데게 상황당에 탐체에 되는지 소소래야 체벌등 파과지레 쌈마토바이나양 소소들 멤버지레 싸와있는 삼주요 말레스 텐디 체수치야요 말레스 테네 대자마세 다 메마보 님도 대인도서는 되게 계속 처음에 완담만담고 시에네 두수도 조마주스 테네 야 메신다라 추랑게지다 Tensang to sola Milapa, Pembe Geja Lawa in a Yankendes and Yonyores, Tendu, Mishendagi Sem de Churanga go to Yates Gale Cabuyores, Guvayomares, Techi Dusani, Tele, Churang Tambo Transhach and Nedans, Lega non trumaji, Samlo non trumatang, Telechin la Penjik Damato Yanaya, Neva Maji, or Tenation de Hoda, then Tegi, Churang. Sendedang 세치모 탐지라 되는지 내는 내버려 둬야 좋던지 차용을 어테인도 대대고 해야 되는 행동이 송바다.
Then verse number 10 says, wherever one abides or whoever one encounters, do not scorn or speak meaninglessly. It is not necessary to guide others' minds. To live honestly this is my heartfelt advice. So wherever you are and with whomever you associate with, keep company with, stay together with, eat together with, and so on, it's important to at all times treat others with respect, everyone with respect. Do not look down on them or scorn them, meaning that thinking I'm much better than they are, I'm good, but they're just lowly. They're below me. Don't see them at all in this way. But especially nowadays, there's much talk about equal rights in the world between people. And so similarly, we should think of equal rights also in the Dharma, in the sense that seeing that all sentient beings possess Buddha nature. In that sense, we are the same, that we are equal. And also all sentient beings wish to be happy. In that sense, we are also equal. And all sentient beings do not wish to suffer. In that sense, we are also equal. And so from your own perspective, that do not think of others in this denigrating way, looking down on them at all. Do not see them as something inferior. And also when being together with a lot of people, especially if you stay together for a long time, do not engage in meaningless talk, just talking about pointless things. Don't waste your time that way. But when associating with others, speak in a meaningful way, and at the very least, do not harm them in any way. If you can help them, and if you cannot do so, at least do not harm them in any way. So also do not listen to all kinds of negative conversation. So treat other people with great respect in your mind, and just be honest. Even if other people maybe are not able to treat you in this way, from your own side, be straightforward and honest. Do not be mistaken in your activity, and do not be mistaken in your thinking. No matter what people say or do, and try to help them. And if you cannot benefit them, at least do not cause them any harm. And if you can act in this way, then you will proceed from happiness to happiness in this life and also in all the future lives. So to act in this way is his next heartfelt advice.
Zhenglu Chunten Tala Ponglen Dang Garup Tejin Dawa Gumbane Danyum Shade Ran Lama Ye Kansong Yamna Kuwing the means. Tadi Sundu Zane Naranzo Namba Sanje Ba Zam Mayimbar Chulu Yendang Chunta Yen Inayanda. Then Naranzo da Namba Sanje Be Nanayang Tandan Zambulen La Tazawege Sanje Chulu Yimba Chiguarede. 이나 라마 주베게 림바게 토네 양데스 주바 소소소소네 남바 만다와 같은데 용거와 데인도 뜻 탐체데 남바 인난다 메난다 남바 임베나나야 지다 거주 남바 짬마인바 남바 현다 인난다 가리나야 Tendegi chulu chunda tanzo one chik samching mangbola pento yu deba. Jedengi kamla pento yu deba. Samchengi samkamla pento yu deba. Tende changchang res. Di indu zane chik tenso tene chik ta nordo yu re sayandrawo. Nganso di yaga re sayandrawo. Ta tende chene chik tabar zoiban drawo jab gaudum drawo che deba ina tegi kepsang ke yu ma res. Pento kanya yu ma res. Di indu chulu chunda shenda tangyum chene yaas. 약쇼 존은 텐솔라 대바 다낭 제고야 배 개침보래 다 개세 대바 다낭지 제 마토바 있나요 땅흉 제네 자스 장행기 산노 마타마 체네 소소그 두고야 데 카레스나 소소라다 라메기 송자와 라메기 나자베기 추데 야보지 드루스 어테마도 배 소소라 라메 송자베기 추데 냠네 마제바체 어다 젠다기 출룩텐소 쩨엔데도 논촌데 치르 대장장 선노당 대바이나 정 소소라라그레스 어디 인디산에 소소소소 정 말아와지 고야 배 개침보 인디산에 드니지 출룩 젠다젠라 문에체나 대바다나 제벌 배 개침보 인사래 간선은 출룩텐소 배 팽겨요로 남바 지부 마이 배 출룩 젠다긴 잠불랭 가세르만 볼 팽겨요 심진 가세만 볼 팽겨이지래 그래 남배 나는 남바 신다 등속이야 가세만 뭐 팽겨 유지래 어디 인도산에 되지 심진나 팬드 좀 개인 바 징송에 선배 대바다는 제스 소소기 냠내 제야 돼 소소 라메 송제와 대가랑 냠내 제다 대긴 징도레스 야 대바 샤네 신다 지기 잘 로데와이나 대기야 캡상이라 토야 요 말데 디지디산에 텐텐나야 되는 게 행담이 송바다 Lame Kang Song by the Yang the Kohen means.
Then moving on to verse number 11. So following other traditions that state what is to be rejected and accepted and what is to be refuted and established should be abandoned. By setting oneself in equanimity, practice what the master taught. This is my heartfelt advice. So the other traditions does not just only mean the other Buddhist traditions. It can also mean any other religion, any other belief system. And also within Buddhism, there are many different Buddhist traditions and lineages in the world. But the root of all of them really is essentially the same. So it seems that there are some differences. There are different lineages because there are different like progressions and successions of lineage masters, lineage gurus that have developed different lineages. But essentially, all the Buddhist traditions really come down to the same. So it's not just the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, also all the other Buddhist traditions, all the different systems are all beneficial. And all the other religions in the world are beneficial to sentient beings. So therefore, we shouldn't think that they are wrong and we are much better. Now, if one constantly is very critical and engages in all kinds of dispute with others, it's really of no benefit. There is no advantage in doing that at all. So ideally, one should let it all be and see them with great faith and a pure perception. But if you can't see them with great faith and a pure perception, then at least you should kind of see them from a state of equanimity. Let them just all be the same and don't think of them in a negative way. And then from our own perspective, what are we to practice? We should practice the instructions, the teachings that we have received from our own guru. So if we fail to do that, if we fail to put into practice what the guru taught us, while at the same time being very critical of other traditions or religions and thinking that they are wrong and so on, that is really our own loss. And it's very important to make sure we are not at loss ourselves. So therefore, ideally, we should regard all other traditions and religions with great faith and a pure perception and see that they all are beneficial. not just the Buddhist traditions, but all the religions in the world bring a lot of benefit to various sentient beings. And then also within Buddhism, we can see how many people benefit from the various Buddhist traditions. So in this way, I regard them ideally as all equal, with great faith and a pure perception. And then from your own perspective, it is enough if you simply just put into practice exactly what your guru told you to do, without being a kind of restless and trying to find something else to do, some other practice to do. And this is how you will end up always losing out and not finding an advantage. So he's saying that this is my hard advice. It's my hard advice to practice what the guru taught you to practice.
Tene chungni bade rangi nyamnyong nang ne maji sing tawe puta gombe maje na tachir pede lamje termendong tadu gomba ku nyingda means. Ate indu sane ngadu chu tola tene kane xie xiewa jibu kanya pengmawa kane xie xiewa ge pengmare zoba jab shenge xiewa ge pengmawa kaisana soso semu ju nyamnyong jibu re pene ngadu ndidawa karse me mengi mengdo chasan ngadu lola yuwa tsamji nasa chayumdo yinayang mende soso sa tunggenji gugudo mende sa ne nasa chagudo te nanshin re chude kasana ngadu la penya de 다지 주역의 남장된데 요래 오다 주역의 천인된데 요래 선에 텐수지 신바 지구비 가야 100만 와다 그 시랍 야제지 로그를 마도베 시라게 펜토 총총으로 지로와 띵 땅원에 지 펜토 고유나 갈고 그러서나 섬은나는 냠용이 가지고 그러와 다 먼저 섬은나는 냠용데 제 마도와체 드네지 따와텔라양 시라게 니신도 지 매대와지 따웨기 타 맞춰반로 지 따웨기 타데 수요 쪽으로는 곰베토는 쪽으로와 곰 맞아봐이나 따와 타 주도 말때 다 텐데 따웨기 타야 맞추 냠뇽야 매바이나 데다서 거치 빼찰랐다네 쯧바잡대야 당 테니 파수지 시에대야 대지국이 내로데 통통 말레스 내로 타르토바데 대지도 다 가르고 요래서나 남종원에지 라메 송베게 추 라메 모테베게 추게 된다게 돌아 냠뇽 제바체 대돈에 드네지 다 또바지 줄에 제바체 대 양은 양도 곰버 제베기 드네 곰게 돌아다 준비 해야 돼 베마세베 개침모레스 대인도 마곰바이나 드네 셴바sam지 가야 팽마레스 너다 대인도 따도 곰자야스 녜킹담이 숨버다 당분 라면되네 투고레 투베게 된 대돌아 드네 양은 양도 다 지 두주 남곰라 곰 투야데 개치슈레스야 대송바레.
Then next is verse number 12. So it says, do not arise out of one's own experience and determine the view of meditation. It cannot be seen through analysis and analogies. Meditate continuously. This is my heartfelt advice. So if we only know how to speak about the Dharma, that is of no real benefit. It's also of no real benefit if we just discuss and debate the Dharma. The real benefit comes from actually gaining an experience in one's own mind, a personal experience. So it's just like, for example, if someone has memorized all the different names of different kinds of medicine, that only in knowing all the lists of medicines alone will not make one be healed from a sickness. If you want to be healed from a sickness, you actually have to eat the medicine, take the medicine, then you will get better. And so similarly, it is with the Dharma. It's of no benefit to just be able to list from memory all the different enumerations of the Dharma and the different characteristics and so on. That alone is of no benefit. Of course, it might develop one's intelligence, but where does the real benefit come from? It comes from a personal, actual experience within one's own mind. So the experience leads to a certainty in the view, the natural state of the mind. And when one doesn't gain an experience in the practice, then one will not come to this conclusive, kind of decisive experience or certainty. So to come to this certainty in the mind, with regard to the nature of mind, one has to meditate and actually practice it. Without a meditation, one cannot resolve the view. One cannot resolve it by just reading some scriptures or debating or speaking eloquently about the view. This is not how one will see the ultimate natural state of the mind. So in order to see the nature of the mind, the view, what we need to do is to have, first we receive the instructions, the teachings of the guru, and then we put them into practice as instructed. And then from this practice, we gain an experience, and from the experience then arises realization. So for that to happen, it's extremely important to practice continuously and with great diligence. If we do not do that, if we fail to practice with diligence, and nothing else will be of real benefit to lead to really ascertaining the nature of the mind. And so we must always engage in practice with great diligence. So it is his hard advice to first hear the instructions of the guru, and then at all times, continuously, again and again, put these teachings into actual practice.
Ati indusane sanje ki tene yang do tingin zengi jerbu nangla tene nganzo gombe ki tene penyo ju sana sonyo biyo gomjabe penyo ju. Gomjabe penyo ju sonyo indusane penyo tangbo de kare yore sendu tene sim zangwa cha tugres. Khenchen tanda ngarang so ge simde nyomomba ndecha shedang timu ge zhu dang ji bena chu nyoma na jin ta chu nyoma de pa zangwa zo gu yu na zhu dang de wa yin chu de ka de na zangwa cha tu ma re de na jin do simde zangwa zo ya la ne kare go res na ta ya gu gum jam ne chu ge ne lo ge thola yin na yanda yana chambe ge thola yana ningje ge thola 다 텐데지가 돌았으면 제지도 내내 검송하이나 드는 섬데 장마 차용을 해 스페는 처리되네 흘려지는 야자원 그 장마 차로 나 신의 텐데 평양 당부대 섬드네 장마 차도야 송발에 드네 평양 니바데라 바여와 차도다 곰자윈도 전에 녀몽바 슈 총로 총로인도 텐시 바유 슈 치르치를 레비모레 텐데 인도 전에 바유를 네트워크래 Tene gom jaw yundu zane sanje ge yundenda sanje ge garin jis ten yore sanje jis ten tugre penyan sumbatela tene tena jendo gom jaw yundu zane chanchu sembe ge jeba parchin tugla soba tenzola tene be 대바다 ndeba shuchiwa le yumre sumre tene tena jendo sosu ge jula yang yishi ge tene jida 왜 사나한다 이식이 뇌바대야 세르세르 차이물에 송거예요. 되는 신도 되네 산제당 라마 개외신인 라양 되네 최바 차용 거요래. 대송도 남중 안저 잡 두페 최바 송도와 테레 텐드 최바 차용 거요래. 되네 되는 신도 딱 문에 추 양다바지 줄에 덴토바 차용 거요래. 퇴바다 삼베톤에 지다 투삼 제바이는 추 줄에 댕기를 때 gombe thone chue da ngone tembo chine jure den tho cha yu yure tene tena jendo lunga ye sumbo te khadu ina ya megebe chone sul sungjuk chia le ha yu yure tene tena jendo phakpe ge tene sathang su jule chia tha nyere cha yu yure tene tena jendo sanje ge yishi la soba yang tene jule chia la ta be tusu nyura cha yu yure o te indu sane 그는 검에 평균 쭉 선한테 소용도와 어디인도 인터넷에 검고래 소녀다 같은 소리 좀 세.
So the Buddha said in the Samadhi Raja Sutra, he spoke about those 10 benefits of meditation. And so the first benefit is that your mind will become pure. So right now it is stirred up, it is disturbed by the afflictive emotions of attachment, anger, and ignorance. It is just like muddy water that's constantly being stirred. So what can you do for the water to settle and there to be clear water? If you keep stirring the water, it will never clear up. And so similarly, in order to clarify the mind, you need to let it rest. You need to meditate. And that can mean to meditate or settle single-pointedly in the natural state of all phenomena or of the mind, or to settle in love or in compassion. And if you settle in such a state single-pointedly, the mind will become clear. So it is just like muddied water. When you let the water simply be and allow it to settle, it will naturally clear. So the first benefit is that through meditation practice, the mind will become clear. Then the second benefit is through meditation, the mind becomes heedful. So when you meditate, the afflictive emotions will lose their strength. They will grow weaker. As your mindfulness, your heedfulness grows stronger. So the second benefit is that you will be able to abide in a state of heedfulness, mindfulness. Then the third benefit of meditation is that you will recollect the Buddha. You will recollect the qualities of a Buddha. Then the fourth benefit of meditation is that you will engage in bodhisattva activities such as the 6 paramitas and so forth. And you will do so with great faith and an aspiration, motivation. Then the fifth benefit of meditation is that it is said the light of a primordial wisdom, or that the potency of primordial wisdom will become increasingly clear. And the sixth benefit of meditation is that meditation will become the supreme service or offering to the Buddha and to your guru, the spiritual master. As we mentioned before, the best offering or service to give to the guru is the actual practice. Then the seventh benefit of meditation is that in this way, your Dharma practice will become genuine. You will genuinely practice the Dharma, meaning that first when we hear and reflect upon the Dharma does become integrated into one's mind stream, but it is only through actual meditation practice that this integration of Dharma in the mind actually reaches stability. Then the eighth benefit of meditation is that when you're in a meditative state, that is very easily, you will be able to protect your body, speech, and mind from any non-virtuous conduct. Then the ninth benefit of meditation is that you come closer, you approach the levels of the noble ones in your mind stream. And then lastly, the 10th benefit of meditation is that you will swiftly give rise to the primordial wisdom of a Buddha in your mind stream. So these are the 10 benefits of meditation. And so this explains the reasons why it is so necessary to practice meditation.
네, 주선바데 가르송도스나 나제 주선바데 지시군으로 찾아채면은 가주람제 맹기 이쯤데 채제 드르지 빠빠 돌아왔다를 다만 제뱅안돈 로그베 내루금바 코니미스 다 단지대 지다 추게 되는 가래이나요 건바 제르금바 치러와 다 단단히 하버도 다 찾아침복 공고를 송발해. 라멘드네 찾아침복 모두 쉬어. 라니기 대도라 존주체 대인도산에 되네. 지금 오늘 찾아침복 또봐. 양타바지 줄지야는 배순 지구를 송발해. 대마도 배 나랑서 다지 난데네 가주람 잠게 맹송도인데 벽이 금바탄 속에 럽종 체인도 잔에더니 맹텐데 베나 켐보 게시 라소바다 맹담만 망보여로 냠보 단 켄첸 세야로다 근데 맹 요래데 히나티 맹되게 이 쯤네 땅아 맹도 토선 릭송 삼는 대자와이나 내로기 찾아침부 대한게 토라 곰 맞아봤지 어다지 맹지 톱 물지 톱 어떤데 전에 되게 이 쯤네 근데 지금 지금 주제가 바대 소원이나 근데 산이 시외 가서 강에 되게 맨나 줄게 빠빠 들어와나신 줄게 빠빠 들어왔어야 되잖아요. 근데 줄 되게 빠빠 되요 코란 런로도 되나신 전에 산이 간도 르게 풍분데 예세나 화네 남신데 치료로 된 적을 값수 근데 죄받아 제베트는 배운 거야 자기다 대인도산에 딱 단다고는 거랑 좀 마음 봐라 제바 맞이와 지야라 백해치 모레스 딱 가르고 그래서나 근데 뭐네 내로 찾아진부 되는 거면 돼딱 개체슈지 자기요래 송발 대인도산에 근데 찾아진부 되는 건 봐대 that means 어때서래
Then moving on to verse number 13. When one is satisfied with the title of 10 statements, and when Mahamudra, knowing one liberates all, is absent at the time of death, like a snake shedding its skin, finally, one necessarily leaves everything behind with disappointment. Meditate on the nature of reality. This is my heartfelt advice. So now when we the previous ones were speaking about now we spoke about the understanding the essence of the Dharma and practicing the Dharma. And so this is now more specifically speaking of the practice of Mahamudra, the need of practicing Mahamudra. And so first, practice Mahamudra, we must receive the instructions on Mahamudra from our guru, and then make an effort in practicing them also with diligence. And so one must make an effort in giving rise to an authentic, a true realization of Mahamudra in one's mind stream. And so then it mentions here these titles, being satisfied with the title of 10 statements and so on. So there is different kind of levels of titles that we receive, for example, in the Tibetan Buddhism tradition, like Larampa and Kempo and different levels of Geshe and Khenchen and so forth. But there's different titles that we may receive. But if one is simply satisfied with having this title and thinks that now I have this title, that's all I need, then one will be left not really meditating and practicing the actual purpose, the meaning of Mahamudra. Then one is just satisfied with having this title and having some money. And in this way, one then remains within the bounds of the 8 worldly concerns. And doing so, later, after one has died, one will encounter difficulties. So it says here, at the time of death, it is like one is like a snake shedding its skin. So when a snake sheds its skin, it leaves the skin behind and then moves on. And similarly, when we die, we leave behind the body. The body stays in the bed, and the consciousness goes out and goes on. And then one encounters some difficulties. And so therefore, the hard advice is that it is extremely important to make sure that at this time in the future, one will leave without any regrets in one's mind. And in order for you to leave without any regret in your mind, what's most important to do is to realize the nature of the mind, to practice the meaning of Mahamudra. Therefore, he's saying this, it is my hard advice to meditate on Mahamudra, or the nature of reality.
네 주지바 대기인데 손도와 첨부 준부 추부바오소 대된 권장 탈투 바르던림 체직 대군 내랑 메드르베 탐추제바 쿠hin다민스 아테손도 전에 나랑 손도지는 거와 토마 매반네 아 르당아 이সম보데 장랑 쇼르다 내랑 쇼르바 le megewadan le nontur chigla krowa thom man kom de yore ta thadong yang anzu metsen dinala penachi ta lobjong chembo yin samyan dawo o tenan jin do meng chembo yin den ken dawo tenan jin do zumbo yin na yanda be ji sutum yago song den ken dawo ji yin na yanda ta sutum yago song na ji dan yago de yang sutum yago yu sameng aje yu na ma de barwa de da tene chubo chembo yin samban dawo yana pawo chenbo la soba tendegi tigden daji be boba yenken tenzo yang sudo suyina yang sanji ngodo shiwe gazo jibares bena bombo tene serge tegana shugden kengi bombo yina yanda tangbo tene kenyi nana cham dengen daji yina yanda kandar yang mada chiwal lewe nimotala jibarada todan jibara di nimotala jar본 토탄 체와요 말에 다 지체는 롤로서게 감들 토탄다 제벌지 이제리 마도베 시외 동해 냐야가 토탄티 지버지장 장으로 그러봐 대인도 전에 다 참원데 산이 시내 발도는 좀 거야 돼 징송지레스 대인도 되는 나랑 저다 지금 메센 대난게 첨보 가세이나야 주보 가세이나야 바오 가세이나야 산이 시외 가서 시작이 펜토 용문도 왔을 때 속에 대체도 전에 당간도 가르고 도서는 시외 가서 펜토 약쇼데 담배기 추기 돌아 줘야 돼. 베나지 메센 대난라 tani samchen shen la penbeke chawache semge nangla nyomongbeke ji lo tenzu shuk chung chung dang kangse nyonyong rawa ji je songwa inaya sani nga zo shekala modela sosoge metse de ji dom jago yondu tangi metse di nangla chawa norwa tashida che me a saman rawa ji nge chawa kang tada ji je yo saman rawa ji tene tene aje nge chuge tola ngune ji 검진 데지 제유 삼아로지 대체도 소소 섬능아 뽑아 연경지 지는 셔투 송화이나 캡상로가 된뒤다 추 룸네 룸경게 강사지이나 드네 문에 지산이 시외 가서다 뽑아 연경지 차투 모두 제버던 데지 용도와 베나 추 진겐 잡던조 치와라 가송노 치와라 쪼와다 제바 다산이 시로 요가서 섬을 빼지고 용거다 신의 시고 용거래 시고를 이나양 소소 승부 돌아다 제바 매가지 차차르다 된디 지와라 쪼와다 제바스 근데 차도 정도와 되니 아 대전 마주나야 치와라지 당한 치야라 가 마가와 이나양 댕여바지 댕수여바지 단 타마양 치와라 지다 맹kin지 고래 송도와 대인도 전에 다 된대지 차야라 가르치고 그러서는 주두고래 어다 주도로 검고래 어딘디 룽아 예송게는 지 개와 강톡통도 루토바이나 다 텐조 통하는 안들 개인적인 거와 어딘디 전에 근데 담배게 취를 줘야 돼 년행담이 인생의 대송바래
Then verse number 14, the sovereign, noble one, rich, hero, and arrogant one, eventually all have to go through bardo. Through pride, one is never free from indulgence. Practice the Dharma. This is my heartfelt advice. This verse here is saying that now since beginningless time, we have been wandering in samsara. And we have allowed our body, speech, and minds to become like spoiled, kind of, we have a bad habit of body, speech, and mind. We have habituated to negative, unwholesome, mistaken activity. And still now in this life, even as practitioners, we think of ourselves, for example, I have so much learning, education, or I have such a great title, and so on. And or for example, if someone is ordained, they think I hold my vows of ethical discipline perfectly. And so, of course, that's generally a good thing, but it's not a good thing to be very prideful about it, thinking that I have done it, hold the vows the best. So even if one is a Dharma practitioner, one may think of oneself as being very courageous or very noble, and develop arrogance in that way. So later, at the time of our death, we all become the same. Even if one is like a high status, like a minister or so, then and is like sitting on a golden throne, or one is a beggar, like sleeping in trash, living in trash. And later, at the time of death, it all becomes the same. Maybe that king on the throne, he will be in a bit of a nicer coffin. But aside from that, the suffering of death is exactly the same. And the wandering in the bardo is exactly the same. They all have to go there. No matter how much of a title we have had in this life, or how courageous we were, or how rich we were, and so on in our lives, at the time of death, that's of no benefit, is it? So since that's of no benefit, and what should we do? What should we do? So the best thing to do in preparation for the time of death is to practice the holy Dharma. So if you spend your life just doing the best you can to help sentient beings and to decrease your afflictive emotions, then later at the time of death, when death comes, it is like your whole life will like kind of like a film will be displayed, will kind of run in front of you, and you see your whole life and what you have done, and you will then be without regret, thinking that, seeing all of that you will see, I haven't done much wrong. I did my best. I did my best to practice. I did my best to meditate and practice the Dharma. And this is how you can then die with confidence and without regret in your mind. And that, of course, is to your own biggest advantage. And the difference that allows or does not allow one to die with such confidence is directly connected to the way in which one has engaged in Dharma practice in one's lifetime. So ideally, at the time of death, the highest practitioner would die with great happiness, with great delight and joy. So when death comes, they will actually feel extremely joyful and die within the state of a great delight and happiness. Then even if one cannot die that way, the next best way is to at least die without any regrets in the mind, with this confidence of knowing that I have done my best to engage in practice. But even if you cannot die with this kind of confidence or like this joy in the mind, at the least you should feel that when at the time of my death, I have done my best. I've practiced, and at least you can die without any fear in the mind. So ideally, you die in great joy, or you die with confidence, or you die at least without much fear. And so how do we accomplish death in such a way? it is if we practice the Dharma. It is when we meditate on the Dharma, the nature of mind. If we practice as well as we can with body, speech, and mind, that will really be our greatest help at the time of death. And so therefore it is his hard advice to practice the holy Dharma.
What in the tongue of the pitch, drink the Nanjana Yasare. Tene, tongue of the Munich and Nyima Moto Yomora, Tina Nyima on the Tarsamare, Tandici, this is Jung Yabu, Sindoa, some Nimachapas today in the Sun, and Jobon Jobo, Lord Janaya, Tended do, think this and share. Kalakansan the Japtuna, or some teach to Sane, Tandongas and Nimachik, Ya, Pargosare, Tananga, and the Kodri Chinking. Namjer Kitlechi says this Yabundo Nimachi Yapana Tini Nala to Chevermendo teaches an Gejurdan Tinian Koriching Churan to Kadu Yasarachita Tining the Nimachi Yaman Tantuna. What is the issue? I intending to train some delay.
So then today we will stop the teachings here. But now so it seems that since we only have one more day in our schedule, one more day will not be, it seems not be enough to finish the text. And actually the remaining verses are quite nice. And it wouldn't be good to just quickly rush through them, but I would like to really explain them carefully and well. So I'm thinking about maybe we can add an additional day to our teaching schedule. If that's okay with the organizers, with Christy, that would be excellent. So Rinpoche said for me, it is fine time-wise, so you just have to see if it works for the organizers and the translators and so on. But it would be nice if we could add another day to this class.
Yeah, of course, Khenchen, we're very happy to have 1 more or 2 more days if you think we can extend more. So I will arrange it and let you know. Thank you.
Yeah,
뭐 양계 쇼용 because otherwise we won't finish. Rela. So let's dedicate.
Sonam de Tamje Zeba Nye Done Nyebe Danam Pamje de Jega Nanje Balon Tobai Zeben Sole and Rover Jo.
By this merit, may I attain omniscience, having defeated the enemies, my wrongdoings. May I liberate all beings who are tossed in the ocean of samsara by the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death.
Lama Gungam Zanwara Zorwande Jodu Gutse Rinwara Zorwande Tile Tarjin Jebara Zorwan Lama Dandarwa Mebara Jinje Lord.
I pray for the excellent health of the Guru. I pray that he lives a supremely long life. I pray that his activities spread far and wide. Grant blessings that I may not be separate from my Guru.
Jambe Mbawe Jidra Chimba Gundu Zambo Deyan Dejinde Teda Gunje Jiso Dalus Gewa Deda Damje Rabdu.
Just as the hero Manjushri realized things as they are, and as did Samantabhadra too, I will follow in their path and perfectly dedicate all these virtues.
Sanje Kusumeni Be Chenla Dang Chunye Menjuru Dembe Chenla Dang Gende Meshin Dembe Chenla Chedra Ngoa Malam Drumber Sho.
By the blessing of the Buddhas who attained the 3 kayas, by the blessing of the truth of the unchanging nature of reality, and by the blessing of the undivided Sangha community, May my prayers be fulfilled according to this dedication.
Dadam Kunde Dam Jeje Dusum Dusam Badam Yube Geve Zavande Dadam Simjen Tam Nyurdu Lana Mebara Yandabara Zove Chanju Rinpoche Dobara Juranje.
By the virtues accumulated in the 3 times by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the intrinsic root of virtue, may I and all sentient beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious awakening.
Shija Gunze Khenchen Juje Tendre Nela Wantu Andre Gomba Chen Barje Demba Sinte Bar Shedu Tusam Gombe Zenjur
May the teachings of the great Drigungpa Ratnashri, Master of Interdependence, Omniscient Lord of Dharma, who has seen all knowable things, be upheld until the end of cyclic existence through study, practice, hearing, contemplation, and meditation.
Chanchu Samjoy Rimbo Enche Maji Panam Jejur Jeba Nyamba Mebraya Kone Kondu Pevar Sho.
May Bodhicitta, the precious and supreme mind, arise in whom it has not yet arisen. Where it has arisen, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher.
So.
Khenchen, Monday, January 27, you have time?
Yes.
One day before the last, yeah, okay. So we will arrange Monday and Tuesday.
Okay.
Ina, can you do
Okay.
that?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
Yes.
Rocco, Alex, can you make it on Monday? So we have one more day. No, let me and the interpreter. Alex?
Yes, yes, I can.
So, okay, thank you. And we wait for Rocco. Rocco, can you hear us? Okay. Yes, okay, finally, I will have on Monday and I will announce